That's a very real possibility. And the other possibility, in my view, is pretty much an uncontrolled escalation into full-blown war that would become a regional war and that could become a world war. I think we're really at that moment right now.
So Tucker Carlson just featured Jeffrey Sachs delivering one of the starkest warnings about World War III I've ever heard. Sachs isn't some pundit. He's advised over 100 governments and literally wrote the book on oil economics. When he says we're at a decisive moment, we need to listen.
As we speak, the world economy is reeling. It's reeling because, as everybody has learned in their geography in the last few weeks, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. As long as it's closed, it means that there's a worldwide economic crisis building. So time is not permissive right now. We can't say, well, we'll decide in another month.
This is absolutely crucial context. The Strait of Hormuz handles 21% of global petroleum liquids. That's $1.2 billion worth of oil daily. When it's closed, we're not talking theoretical economics. We're seeing real-time stagflation hitting American families at gas pumps and grocery stores right now.
So Trump and his partner in this, Netanyahu, might say the only thing we can do is make the maximal threat. And if that threat does not lead to Iran conceding, then we have to follow through, not with more time and waiting because of this unstable situation, but we have to return to massive bombing, this time even more. And what we can suspect on that alternative is that the Iranians will, of course, strike back and strike back very hard and very rapidly.
He's exposing the core problem. Our stated war objectives were never legitimate to begin with. Taking the off-ramp means admitting the neocon clean break strategy was a catastrophic failure. That's politically impossible for the establishment, even as it bankrupts ordinary Americans.
But we know that the desalination plants in the Gulf region, the oil and the gas fields, the port facilities are not protected systematically and comprehensively against Iranian attacks. And Iran would completely, totally, understandably respond to what Trump has repeatedly threatened, which is the destruction of Iran. So if we don't take the exit ramp, I personally don't see anything realistic less than an all-out war.
This connects directly to Trump's current ultimatum to Hamas: release hostages or face hell to pay. But as we've seen, Iran's hypersonic missiles penetrated Israeli Iron Dome defenses. Our $50 billion missile shield investments are proving worthless against modern Iranian technology.
So, to return to the basic question, Trump could say, we're not going to go to disaster. We just pull back. That's the right answer. If he says instead, we can't wait any longer, we're going to attack, I believe we will see a different world 4 weeks from now, a world that is profoundly damaged, the world economy in crisis, the possibility of escalation to a full world war. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic or naive to say that we are at that fork in the road right now.
The timeline he's describing is terrifying but accurate. Military analysts estimate Iran could cripple Gulf infrastructure within weeks using their missile arsenal. Add China's naval presence in the region, and we're looking at potential superpower confrontation over oil choke points.
Iran had not invaded or attacked another country for a century and a half. This was a peaceful country. It had been invaded several times, but it was a democracy that didn't threaten anybody, didn't want to threaten anybody, hadn't threatened anybody, hadn't invaded any place actually since the 1790s in a brawl over who controlled Basra. So, in other words, very esoteric things from the 1790s. But since then, Iran had been bothered, but had not bothered anybody else.
The Palantir AI targeting scandal he's referencing is getting buried by mainstream media. This is Peter Thiel's company using algorithms to select targets and apparently killing 160 schoolgirls on day one. We're literally watching the dehumanization of warfare in real time.
And when he uttered that thought that maybe Iran's oil belonged to Iran, immediately the British Empire, in the form of MI6, came to the new ascendant American empire in the guise of the CIA and said, we got to overthrow this guy, which of course they did successfully. They made what today we would call a color revolution. They stirred up protests in the streets. They stirred up unrest. And Mossadegh was chased from power. And the United States installed what the Persian Empire would have called a satrapy, meaning that Iran became a kind of province of the American empire under ultimately CIA rule.
This 1953 history is everything. Operation Ajax wasn't just regime change. It established the template for American imperial control over oil resources. The 1979 revolution broke that control, and our foreign policy establishment has never forgiven Iran for escaping the empire.
Our own intelligence agencies have said that repeatedly. What they have pursued, though, is a treaty with the UN Security Council to confirm that, to put them under strict monitoring under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but in return for ending the U.S. economic warfare on Iran. What Iran has wanted for 15 years is you supervise us, you control us, fine, but lift your sanctions. Let us breathe. Let us have a normal economy. Let us trade. And President Obama, and by the way, one other thing, let us have our own money back because the United States has confiscated tens of billions of dollars of Iran's money.
46 years of obsession explains everything about current policy. Treasury Secretary Yellen's economic statecraft, meaning financial warfare, has cost Iran over $200 billion. But notice how she celebrates crushing their economy while American families struggle with inflation from these same policies.
And the clean break strategy said, we will never accept, we being our new government, never accept the state of Palestine. We will occupy all of what had been the British Palestine, British mandatory Palestine. In other words, we'll control Gaza, we'll control the West Bank, we'll control all of Jerusalem, and we may control other places as well. We'll never do that, but we'll face resistance when we make that claim and hold on to this territory. We'll definitely face resistance. We'll definitely face resistance of militant groups. But what Netanyahu and his colleagues in the United States said was, rather than fighting those militant groups directly, we need to bring down the governments in the Middle East and West Asia that support those groups.
Every U.S. intelligence assessment since 2007 confirms Iran stopped weapons development. The 2015 nuclear deal offered exactly what he describes: comprehensive monitoring in exchange for sanctions relief. Trump killed that deal specifically to maintain the pretext for war.
And those governments were Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And we've now been pulled into Israel's 7 wars. 6 of those wars have led to bloodbaths and disasters, from Libya still in civil war, Sudan unbelievably in 2 civil wars because we broke the country apart, and each of those 2 parts now has its own civil war. Somalia, there's not even a government. There is a government, actually a very nice prime minister that I know, but barely governance in the country.
Remember Trump's explicit quid pro quo to oil executives. Give me $1 billion, get all the benefits. The Venezuela parallel is perfect. After recognizing Guaido as president, U.S. companies expected to control Venezuelan oil. Same playbook, bigger prize with Iranian reserves.
So that's the tableau. This is why it's hard to take the exit ramp, because there were reasons for this war, to my mind, cruel, illegal, delusional. So I don't abide by any of those reasons, but there were reasons for this war, and taking the off-ramp means that none of those would be fulfilled. From my point of view, fine, none of them was valid. But from the point of view of the 2 architects of this war, Trump and Netanyahu, that's quite hard to do. But, as I said, the alternative, which is an escalated war, within a few weeks could destroy the world economy.
$10 trillion. That's the clean break strategy's real cost since Netanyahu's 1996 plan to remake the Middle East. Iraq, Libya, Syria, all regime changes serving Israeli regional dominance while American taxpayers foot the bill and our infrastructure crumbles.
And instead, what you get is just both sides unleashing their arsenals. And what will happen in a short period of time is not a closure of shipping, but a destruction of the physical capacities of providing the oil and the gas and the fertilizers and the petrochemicals and the other very core commodities for the world economy. And it doesn't take that much to bring the world economy into a tailspin, because you don't need to close down half the oil supply.
Iran keeps offering the same deal: permanent international monitoring in exchange for normal trade relations. They want to rejoin the global economy, not dominate it. We're holding their central bank reserves hostage. Imagine if China froze America's treasury bonds. They're asking for their own money back, not aid or concessions.
And so thank you for your voice. They're not hostile messages. They're very nice, sweet people who say we're in the end times. I'm hoping we're not in the end times. This is the basic point. We should have some prudence. Somebody should reach the president of the United States and say, stop before disaster.
The American motivation is pure imperial control. We can't tolerate independent regional powers. The Israeli motivation is territorial expansion under the Greater Israel Project, which requires eliminating any military deterrent. These aren't defensive wars, they're wars of choice for empire and expansion. The security justifications are cover stories.
That doesn't have to be the way the world and our system works.
Or ends.
Or ends, exactly. Thank you.
Jeffrey Sachs, thank you very much for that.
Great to be with you, Tucker. Thanks.
6 countries destroyed, millions dead, tens of millions of refugees flooding Europe and destabilizing Western politics. Libya's slave markets are operating openly. Syria's infrastructure is medieval. Iraq's sectarian violence never ended. Why would anyone think the 7th war against a much stronger opponent